As you're aware, Oklahoma was recently hit by one of the most disastrous tornadoes in history, as far as we know. That's the terminology that Obama is using. Almost 2 miles wide at its widest, winds over 200 miles per hour, at least 24 killed, over 200 wounded at this point, including many children. So a very serious disaster has struck Oklahoma, and now the response begins. President Barack Obama came out and he wanted to make clear that he was going to give whatever support is necessary to both the individuals struck in Oklahoma and also the law enforcement and political officials in that state. Let's take a look at his statement.
Last night, I issued a disaster declaration to expedite those resources. Oklahoma needs to get everything that it needs right away. The FEMA Administrator, Craig Fugate, is on his way to Oklahoma as we speak. So our prayers are with the people of Oklahoma today, and we will back up those prayers with deeds for as long as it takes.
Yeah, that's not what I would have done. Okay, now you think, I mean, as I read the stories, and 9 kids were killed, and there's this heroic stories of the teachers covering up the kids so they wouldn't get blown away. There's this gut-wrenching story of a couple that rushes in to find their kids in the elementary school. They see their daughter, but they don't see their son. They can't find the son for 5 hours, I should say. And then finally they locate him at a different hospital. Must have was the most gut-wrenching 5 hours of anyone's life. So I feel tremendously for the people of Oklahoma. But their 2 senators are the most vile, ignorant senators there are in the country. And James Inhofe and Tom Coburn consistently vote against relief for other states. They did it on Superstorm Sandy, and they do it all the time. In fact, there was $12.9 billion for future disaster mitigation, which might have helped Oklahoma, that they voted against.
Yeah.
So if I'm President Obama, I would be tempted to say, I will give this disaster relief to Oklahoma because I'm the President of the United States of America and I represent all of you. But I will do it immediately after Coburn and Inhofe come out here and give a public apology to the rest of the nation for consistently voting against federal aid when you needed it. But they come begging to me for federal relief. So when they come out here and say New Jersey, New York, Texas, all other states that we voted against when you needed the money, we're incredibly sorry. And to the federal government at large, we are incredibly sorry for constantly belittling the federal government, because the minute we run into trouble in our home state, we come running to the federal government. And once Coburn and Inhofe have done that on their knees, then I will send the disaster relief right away.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are thankfully at least pointing out the massive historic hypocrisy on the sides of both of those Republican senators in Oklahoma. Like, I love Ted Cruz recently had a statement because he was attacking the Republicans who'd voted against the Sandy relief. This is before the hurricane, and now I think it's even more clear that it's not just short-sighted, it's not just being like fiscally tight-fisted, I guess. Like these senators are so lacking in empathy that now I think that what you were talking about, the heroic things that we saw, the inherent the humanity of what happened, both the bad side and then the good things that we're seeing now in the response, it just makes them look all the more heartless in response. It's like Wayne LaPierre's response after Sandy Hook. Like, these don't look like compassionate human beings, and it's very easy to send a politician to Washington because, oh, he'll vote for gun rights, or he'll work to ban abortion or something, like these political goals or whatever. But when something terrible strikes your state, you want a human to respond. And I don't think that they're in the habit, the Republican Party, of sending humans to Washington.
Right. Now, the people who got hurt today were not at all responsible, and you don't know who they were, and they're individuals, and as I said, my heart goes out to them, right? But the people of Oklahoma have to realize that in a democracy, they have a responsibility. They have a responsibility to the 49 other states. And if they send 2 guys out there who constantly vote against the 49 other states, and then when you get hit with disaster relief, a giant disaster, and you want the disaster relief right away, well, I got to ask you, why did you elect those 2 senators? So you've got to look at yourself. But the problem is, there is no accountability in the red states. There is no accountability for people who are grossly inhuman at times, to the point you're making, John. Because what are we going to do? You think we're going to keep disaster relief from Oklahoma? Of course not, because we're decent human beings.
Exactly.
So of course we're going to give them the relief. And what I'm asking the president to do is not to block the relief, but at least to make a case here. Because otherwise, the people of Oklahoma, they won't even know. I don't think they get the third most disaster relief in the whole country, okay? So you think that if you went to the average guy in Oklahoma, hey, do you know that your senators always vote against disaster relief because, oh, there was some part of the legislation they just didn't happen to like, et cetera. But you guys get the third most. You think they know that? People of Oklahoma don't know that. And people say it's too soon. My ass, it's too soon. This is when you make the point when it is relevant.
Yeah.
Because it's not that we don't feel for the people of Oklahoma. It's that we also feel for the people of the other states. In fact, Inhofe was asked about that on MSNBC. I love his response for several different reasons. Let's watch it first.
Comment because, as you know, there were a number of people along the East Coast shore who were unhappy about your vote on Hurricane Sandy. In fact, you said that the request for funding was a slush fund. With all due respect, is there money to help the people here in your home state rebuild?
Well, let's look at that. That was totally different. They were getting things, for instance, that was supposed to be in New Jersey. They had things in the Virgin Islands. They were fixing roads there. They're putting roofs on houses in Washington, D.C. Everybody was getting in and exploiting the tragedy that took place. That won't happen in Oklahoma.
See, that's so vile on a couple of different fronts. First of all, he implies that the people of Oklahoma deserve things and are better people than the people of New Jersey.
They won't try to scam the government.
You know how
East Coasters.
Yeah, you know how those liberal East Coasters are.
Yeah.
You know, when they get devastated by a $50 billion storm, oh, they're just scammers. But the people of Oklahoma, well, we deserve the money because we're good people. Really? You're the good guy, Inhofe? You malicious prick, you're the good guy? Okay? So now Inhofe also says there, yeah, I mean, it hit New Jersey and they're getting money in the Virgin Islands. What a ridiculous thing. It also hit the Virgin Islands, you ignoramus. It was a storm that went up the coast and it hit all those places. It hit New Jersey the worst, but it didn't just magically come out of nowhere and just hit New Jersey and leave. It
New
hit
York,
all along the
Connecticut.
coast. He's such a liar. He's so malicious. And if he's not, he's one of the most ignorant people in the country.
Yeah.
And it's probably a combination of all those things. And finally, back in 2008, when, as usual, Inhofe went hat in hand to get more disaster relief for Oklahoma, as he does all the time, he said the impact of severe weather has been truly devastating to many Oklahoma communities across the state. And I'm pleased that the people whose lives have been affected by disastrous weather are getting much needed federal assistance.
Yeah.
And that's relevant for two reasons. When the federal government has money for Oklahoma, Inhofe loves the federal government and says it on the record. When it has assistance for any of you, he hates the federal government.
Yeah.
And note, that was in 2008. He voted against the Sandy aid 4 years later.
Yeah.
So it's not like he ever learns his lesson.